Hi all, so today in this video we are going to see about how to write data into multiple data store entity. So for that purpose what I am going to take is, for example, this is a user form. So in that I have taken name, email and date of birth. Like this will go into one table, and the street name, city, state name, this will go into another table. Okay, so for that purpose, name, email and date of birth, I have made a separate CDT for that, this one. So this is the email, this is the ID you can see here, and that is a primary key, and this is the name, email and date of birth. Everything is now here. Okay, and all this thing I will map it to this user form, name, email and date of birth. So first of all what I will do is I will add this rule input, like this CDT. For this CDT I will add this rule input. Okay, so basic data, and in the type, what is the type of this basic data? The type is YS user basic data. Okay, and I will type this type here. Okay, and this is the type, and now let's create this CDT, and this all basic form was already created. So in the value field I just have to go and map the values. Okay, so value will be rule input basic data dot name. Okay, and the same will be rule input basic data dot name. You can put it here. Okay, and now just I will copy and place it here, and instead of name I will give it email. Okay, and here as well I will give email ID, and here as well I will paste it, and instead of name I will give date of birth. Make sure like DOB is in date, not in text. I have taken it as date. Now this value is mapped. So if I write any name, like a test name, if I give it, and email is something as test@email.com, and date of birth is something like, if I have taken some dates from here, so you can see my rule input is now populating with the data. All the data are now coming. Okay, and now in this section is now what you can say saved in one CDT. Now for the address I have made another CDT. Okay, which consists of the ID, street and city and state. Okay, so these things are there: city, state, street, city, state are there. All these are text, and ID is primary key. Okay, so I will add another rule input for the address as well. So user address I will give it, and what is the type? The type is same as my CDT name. Okay, and here I will copy the type for this one. Okay, and now I will click on create. So another rule input is created, and again I need to pass the rule input here. Value will be rule input user address dot street name. Okay, this is the street, and this is again user address dot street. Okay, now this is the value, and all this, copy this, and now if let's paste it here, and now let's paste it here. So instead of the street I can give it here city. Okay, and here as well city, and this is the state, so I will put it as a state here, and here as well state. And now if I give any test street name, okay, let's add some city as city and some state. Okay, so now you can see here all these values are populating here as well. Okay, so my interface is ready. Now both these CDTs are there. I have to go to the data store and add this entity as well, because these are not added here. So after that we will go and create the process model. Okay, so let's add the entity. First of all we will add for this one YS underscore user basic data. Okay, and this is the basic data. First entity is there, and now I will go and add the second entity, that is ys user address, ys underscore user address. Okay, and this is the second entity as user address. Okay, and save it, and now verify it. It will fill, it will say like no matching table found because currently there are no tables, but if I click on save and publish, the tables will now be created. So let's go into the database and search something as ys. So I can see ys user basic data is there, id, name, email, birth, and one more was there, that is a user address. This is there. Okay, so interface is ready and the process is as well ready. This CDTs, I can now close it, and data store. Okay, so now I can move on to the process model and create. So this is already a blank process I have created already. So let's add. So first of all, what we will add is a user input form. Okay, and after that I guess in our cancel is there, right? So if cancel is there, so for the cancel I can add something as XOR. So here and here, now I have to write this data to multiple data store entity. So for that purpose I have to search write to, so you can see here write to multiple data store entity. Okay, so this is this, and okay, before configuring the multiple data store entity, let's finish this user input task. So first of all, for the assignment we can give it something as initiator, done. And now for the forms I will take write to ys underscore write to multiple data store entity. That's it. Right, now this values are there, and now we will go on to the data type and we will create the rule inputs. So this is the cancel one. Let's create cancel rule input will be there, and now let's map now cancel part is done. Now for the basic data we will click on the plus icon and it will create the basic data process variable, and let's map the basic data as well. For the user address as well we will create on plus and it will create the user address. Okay, now all these values are now done. This is configured. Let's configure, before configuring the XOR, let's connect it to the end node. Okay, and after configuring it to the end node, okay, now this is done. Okay, and now we will give a condition here like if PV bank cancel is true, then it should directly go to the end node, otherwise now okay, PV bank cancel is there, and now after the cancel is configured we will write it end node, and now we will write to the multiple data store entity. We can name it as well like store use store basic and address information. Okay, so it is storing both the one. Now we have to see like how this multiple data store entity will work. Okay, so here let's go to the data type, and here you can see it is written here value to store like what, and if you expand this you can see the entity is added here and the data is there. So entity is what? An entity we have to browse, and it is a data store entity. Okay, and data type you can see it can be any kind of data, any type it is written here, and it cannot be mapped from here. So we have to go back to the value to store, and it is a type of what? Entity data, and we have to click on the value type, and from here only we have to write both the entities. Okay, so what to write here, like what value should I write here so that the values will be mapped to the interface. So for that what we will do here is, you can see here the type written here is entity data, right? So we will click on here and we will map here. If you write just entity data, you can get the values here, a bank entity, and both the value whatever that was present there, both of the values are now coming, entity and data. And here as well when we expand this we are getting the same value, that is entity and data. Entity is what? Okay, we have to write the entity. And what is the entity? You can see it is a type of data store entity, and we have created the CDT we have created, but we haven't created the data store entities. So let's create the data store entity. So I am going to the constant, and for the basic data, for the constant we have to write in caps lock. Okay, basic underscore data and then data store entity, and it will be type of data store entity. And okay, and now which is the data store? It is ys data store. And what is the entity here? Basic data. So one constant is done. And now for the address as well, we will click on this second constant. Okay, so for address, let's write it like user address. Okay, I guess it should be in okay, user address data store entity, and it is type of data store entity. And now we have to give value as ys data store and then user address. Done. And now we are ready with our both our data store entity. So entity is what? First of all, I will write it to which entity? So I will write it to the ys underscore, okay, ys underscore, okay, consbang ys underscore user. Okay, user, you can see here user data was there, right? First constant is basic data. Simple, just copy and paste from there, no need to do. And now what is the data? Now the data is all the basic data was in this rule input of rule input basic data. Now this basic data rule input has changed into a process variables. So you can see here this is the basic data process variable. It is containing all the ID, name, email ID, date of birth, everything is here. So the data is in which process? Will just click on that and now it works. Okay, so this in this way, like we can map our entity, but we had multiple datas, right? So we have to write multiple entity. So let's add the, what we will do is we will add the another. But if you like see, if we have to add multiple, then at that time only our mind should strike that it will be now become an array, then only we can add multiple values, otherwise we won't be able to add. So once it ended, let's add here again a bang entity data, and again the entity will be different, it will be user address data. Okay, so cons bang ys, instead of this write this. And now data, where is the data for this one? So the data will be available in the process variable user address, and in our rule input it is in user address, is containing all the ID, state, city, everything. So here as well it is containing all the data here. Okay, both these are done. Let's format it and now close it. Okay, let's go to the output section. Here store value, so whatever the value that we will store, it will be contained in the stored values. That's it. So let's validate our expression, everything is fine, and let's publish our process model. Okay, now our process is ready. So let's try to debug the process. Let's click on start process for debugging. Okay, and now let's open our user input form, and here we should be able to fill the form. Okay, so here it is adding something as a user form. So what to give in the username? Okay, so let's give something as name as, let's say Tony Stark only. Let me give it, okay, some sample name, and let's see like tony.stark@email.com. okay, and date of birth of Tony Stark, I am not much sure about that, but he must be around 50 years easily. 22 years have already passed. Let's take something as 1973. Okay, and any date. Okay, now street. So what is the street name? I guess it is something as Malibu. I'm not sure. City is City, which city he lives in? Oh, city is I guess it was California, and state as well. Let's give it California only. Let's submit the form. So now let's see the process. So you can see here the process has ran, and you can see the process ended. Let's see what the value got saved. So at id1, what is the value? So in the stored value you can see all the detail. ID was 1, name was Tony Stark, email ID was stored, and then the street ID and all these are also stored. So let's see, this was the basic data in the this one. So at id1, what is the name and date of birth? This is stored, and in the address field, what is the address of id1? This is the address of id1. So this is a way like I have make id as a kind of data point to find out the value for, like if id I give it 1, I will get the address of that person. If I give the basic data as well for id1, I will get the basic address as well. Same thing has been done in the sample tables as well, that is given. For example, customers are there and their IDs are there, and now the customer addresses are also there. What is the address? Same thing I have tried to replicate it here as well. So in the basic data and the user data. Okay, and we can change our sections a bit more, which can look much better. For example, we can write here address address details. Let's add here address details, and for this section, this is the section layout, and we can make it something as collapsible. Okay, and let's select the another section. Let's give it here as well, and in this label we can give something as basic data, and we will make it here also we can make it collapsible. Okay, and let's save the changes. So you can see like both are, so in this way, like the basic idea was multiple data store entity was same only. So you have to go to the multiple data store entity, and here the value to store we have to add the data like a kind of array. And same thing we can do inside our what you can say without the process as well. We can do in the interface as well. So let's try to add this data from the interface. When we will click on submit button, all this data should get added. Okay, so for that purpose we will write into save into. So when you have to run a smart service, so generally like they work into the save into parameter only. So in our process, where the data was stored, it was stored in a bank entity data, and before that entity data, what is there, the whole thing, the whole this smart service whatever is write to multiple data store entity. So in that multiple data store entity data was there. So here as well we have to write a bank write to multiple data store entities. Okay, and here you can see here it creates or updates the data in multiple data store entities. Everything we have to give it same only. So values to, and now here we can write values to store, and it is saying a list of entity data. So here we can make it an array, and now we can type entity data, and now again the same thing. So first entity data and second. So what we will do here is we will copy the entity data from process only. Okay, and the same thing we will paste it there as well. So copy everything from here, and let's instead of this value to store we will, and this, okay, this brackets as well, curly braces, and now instead of this let's edit this, and instead of the process variable we will add rule input, and here as well we will create the rule input, basic data and user data. So both the things are now added. Okay, so basic data is now ready, and we are ready to click on submit. So if we click on submit, the data should get stored. Okay, let's click on submit, and okay, so all this data should have been written. Let's refresh our interface, and you can see here address is written, and the basic details has also been written down. At id2 what is the basic detail, and at id2 what is the address of id2. Okay, So we have seen how to write to multiple data store entity from the process as well and from the interface as well. Okay, so that's all in this part. Thank you.